What's up? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. I'm Travis Eldridge. He is Tom Eschen. We got a lot to get to on this show. Plenty of news going on across the lacrosse world, as well as a big weekend coming up. So we'll preview all the biggest games.
Yes, we've got some great guests coming on today. John Piatelli for Cornell after their huge victory over Ohio State last weekend. We talked to him as they move forward and have some more of their matchups out coming along the way. We also talked to the Tyrrell sisters, together but separate. We'll explain that. Meaghan and Emma from Syracuse. Obviously, they've had such great careers already, trying to do that again here this season, too. So we've got some great guests today, and can't wait for that, too.
And, of course, stick around for the end of the show, our games to watch for the NLL and college. A little bit of news to get to in the NLL at the end of the show as well. But we start, as we do just about every Thursday show, midweek moment. Tom, what's your midweek moment from this week?
All right, this one, it was a little frustrating. Normally, we try to focus on, I try at least to, something positive that happened in the midweek. And I really thought this was going to be a positive. We had Denver and Boston College women going at it. I tune in, I'm watching on the Denver site or whatever, and it's freezing, it's snowing, and, you know, the first quarter wraps up, and everybody goes inside for 10 minutes, which you got to warm up. I understand that the temperatures were feels like 3 and 4 degrees out there. They come out and play the second. They go to for halftime. They go and play the third. No one comes out after the third quarter. And Boston College ended up getting the win 9-5, as no one scored in the third quarter either. The conditions were very difficult.
Yep.
And I just feel like we were shortchanged a bit, because this was, one number against number 11 in the country. We were talking about this game going in. We had Bea Behrens on the show last week to talk about her team and how excited they were to have Boston College in here on Wednesday. It just felt like we were really shortchanged, and it was a shame that they didn't play the fourth quarter. It's a shame they started the game, to be honest with you. I know BC had to go fly out there. It's a financial thing. But if you can't play under the conditions that are conducive to playing lacrosse, and I know they play in snow, all sorts of things, but this obviously was a very unique circumstances in which the temperatures were dangerous. So if it was that dangerous to start, you probably shouldn't have started the game and you actually got it. If you weren't going to play, don't play it at all. I thought we were robbed of a really good matchup. And that ended after 3 quarters was even worse, because who knows what could have happened in the fourth? You never know.
Yeah, at that point...
I was just a little annoyed by the whole situation, because I was really excited about the game.
At that point, you probably just called it a no contest, right?
Yes.
I don't think Denver's going to, this game doesn't change anything for either team. Like, if Denver's winning, maybe this is a different circumstance. Like, I don't think this changes, whatever the result was, it's not changing the overall landscape of the season for either one of these teams. But you're right. If you're going to play the game, if you're going to start the game, you finish the game. Outside of, some crazy circumstance, it's not like the temperatures drop by 30 degrees during the game. Right?
I just don't think you should have started the game.
But that's what I mean.
I think it was that dangerous to start.
It didn't change over the course of the first hour of the game.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe there was something happening between the players and the officials, and things were, they were getting colder, of course, as the game went on, and just said that's enough. But yeah, I was a little frustrated, because the women's game and the men's, lacrosse as a whole, I should say, deserves better than that.
It's too bad.
I want to say, because it's a top 11 matchup, and that should be given the honor it deserves, and it wasn't given that.
It's like a baseball game that gets called after 5 innings.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel right.
No, and it didn't feel right to me. So it was my midweek moment. It was sad and frustrating, but we press on. And I'll talk about this in a moment. It's supposed to be 60 this weekend in Denver. So
Colorado weather
you never know.
Wild.
Yeah.
One day it's -5, the next day it's 55.
Yeah.
You just never know what you're going to get. I'm going to go with a positive.
Okay,
for
good.
my
Bring us
midweek
back.
moment. So we're going to smile.
We really started on a low note.
Let's go back in the right direction here, because if you didn't see the game on Lax Sports Network on Tuesday, you missed a terrific game between Drexel and St. Joseph's. There were a combined 35 goals scored in an 18-17 win for Drexel. They didn't lead the game, the Dragons, until all the way in the fourth quarter when they put a run together. Jack Mulcahy had the best game of his career, combining for 9 points. He set a career record for goals and a career record for assists, along with setting a career record for single-game points. And despite Drexel winning, Zach Cole, who is going to be an All-American faceoff guy, went 75% at the X. He took a gazillion faceoffs. He picked up 19 ground balls in this game alone, And St. Joseph's still lost. It just kind of gives you a feel for what the game was. It was back and forth. At what point we had 3 goals scored in the first minute of the fourth quarter. It was wild. It was everything you want in a back and forth fun game. It was a perfect Tuesday afternoon. Greg Grenley and I had a great time. So if you didn't watch it, at least go back and watch our highlights that we posted on social media. It was awesome.
And it proves you don't need 2 top 10 teams to have an amazingly entertaining lacrosse game. You know,
exactly.
They were 2 teams unranked, good teams that are decent, not out of the realm of making it, running their own tournaments this year. But it proves to you that you can go and turn on a lacrosse game or one that maybe is close and be like, oh, wow, I'm watching something real fun here, and with a lot of talent and a lot of entertainment at the same time.
Yeah, it felt almost like an NBA game where, like, early on, it just kind of went back and forth, free-flowing, big runs. It was 7-2 St. Joseph's after the first quarter. Yeah. And then Drexel just makes a run and comes right back in it. It was great, and it had the feeling of a game where you just needed a couple of stops down the stretch, and your defense clamps down for a couple of big possessions, and you get a win. That's what Drexel was able to do at the end. Drexel was, like, on fire on the man up as well. By the way, in this game, how many games do you have, like, 9 guys score? Probably not that many. 9 guys in this game had more than 1 goal.
Wow.
That's how wild this was.
That's a lot of points on the board.
A lot of points.
That for sure. Honorable mention was the Dartmouth win over Vermont. That was also a pretty cool midweek moment there, too.
Yeah.
Dartmouth all sorts of fired up after that win.
Good stretch for the Ivy League.
Ivy Leaguers. We'll talk about that more maybe as the time goes on.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll talk about it in some way, shape, or form. But a brief pivot here as we talk about some of the headlines from this week. And we have to talk about the NLL briefly here, Travis, because a big shakeup, you could say, in the front office there. Nick Sakevich, as you know, he moving on to now what we know as the Arizona Coyotes. He's going to work in their front office there. That's a part of a new initiative. And Jessica Berman, the big news, she's going over to the NWSL. She was the deputy commissioner and then the interim commissioner when Sakevich left. So she is moving on in a couple weeks here. She'll stay on to help the changeover, but it feels like this is a bit seismic in the middle of a season to really change a lot of your leadership. Those are 2 of the top people that you had.
Yeah, and it feels like this is coming in a big time for the National Lacrosse League overall in terms of where they go moving forward. We talked to Jessica Berman just last week about where she was picturing the NLL going in the long term here, and I don't. A lot of the things she spoke about, I think they don't change with the leadership change. There are a lot of the same obstacles that the league is going to face moving forward, and I will be very intrigued to see where they go for the new commissioner, just because it's going to be a big time. Yes, they have the ESPN and TSN deal, which is a 3-year deal, I believe she told us last week. So they have some certain things locked down, but there's a lot in terms of trajectory that can be determined now. Like, do you take that and turn that deal into a way to springboard you into more viewership and better opportunities in linear cable and all these different things? And do you get more of a rights fee from these networks because of your viewership? Or does it stay plateaued or go down to what we've seen from lacrosse in the past? There's a lot that whoever this new commissioner is going to take on. And I think that the TV side and the attendance side are big things that will be high on the agenda.
Yeah, and every league, but for better or worse, needs a face and a leader to be out there in front of things. And obviously, commissioners in sports, it's a thankless job. I mean, who likes Roger Goodell? Who likes Rob Manfred right now in Major League Baseball?
Nobody at the moment.
I mean, there's not many leagues in which you can say, we like that person, but you need somebody out at the forefront that's going to be able to be the face, for better or worse, of the front office of your league and be the one that, pumps it up and is representing you. So we have to figure out who that's going to be. And that's an important person for the NLL and growth. I think the main thing you touched on there, Travis, was how is this league going to grow now? Maybe with a bit of a different philosophy. There's some people there that are still around, the board of directors. We've heard rumblings about Matt Hutchings of Colorado, if what role he is going to take on. He does a lot of other things, and he's the one to release the statement about Berman. So what role maybe someone like him will play? We know Joe Tsai is very involved and going to own 2 teams here soon. So there are some pawns here that are moving around, and like you said, they have to align for a league like this to really be able to prosper. That's up and coming, that's been trying to grow as hard as they possibly can. And now it could be that time where you don't know what's going to happen next because of the instability in the front office.
Well, and I think one of the big things that Jake Elliott, our NLL insider, spoke about when we had him on a couple of weeks ago when the Sakevich news came out was, where does the expansion go? Because that was one of Nick Sakevich's big goals, was we're going to expand, and keep this league growing. Well, it feels like, especially with the talent and the financial resources and everything, it feels like that maybe they've hit a spot where they can plateau, and then you take that and grow with what you have. He had mentioned 16 teams, which would be one more expansion team after the addition of Las Vegas, which feels like it could be right. And then it's the new commissioner's job. You add that one more team, you find the right ownership group, and then how do you let it all grow together? What new ideas do you have to put not only just the sport of lacrosse, but especially indoor lacrosse to that next level where it's starting to become less of a very niche thing that people just end up going to on a Saturday, and something that somebody in Philadelphia is going to follow the Wings throughout the entire season. They're not just going to go to a game or two because it's something cool to do on a Friday or Saturday night. That, and it's been this way for professional lacrosse for a long time, that is the next step for the pro game at all levels, whether it's the PLL, the NLL, it was the MLL's problem. How do you take it from something just fun to do and turn it into something that people want to follow throughout the year?
And that's why you need new faces and perspectives in that room making the decisions too.
Yeah.
It can't be just the old guard who's been there for a decade or so, who's been around, that are going to make these decisions because they have the old habits a bit. And then that's why you need someone to shake things up a bit to be able to find that growth so you don't plateau, like you said. So really curious where this search is going to go for the commissioner. Back to the college game we go. Let's flip it. There we go. We got to the men's side first. We're going to do women's quick picks after the interview of Piatelli. We got him coming up here in a little bit. But we're going to start with our categories here. Back to the categories on Thursday as we will begin with category number 1, our conference to watch this weekend. I like this because sometimes we talk about conferences as a whole and sort of reactionary. Oh, that was a good one. Who's going to be watching this weekend?
It's a really big weekend for the ACC. We're not talking about the game on Thursday between Virginia and North Carolina because this show is going to come out right around the time on Thursday evening that game is about to start. So bear with us. That is obviously a huge game. We'll talk about it as we recap the weekend coming up next week. But you look at the non-conference games the rest of the conference has here this weekend. You got Syracuse at Hopkins. Big rivalry game. Obviously, Syracuse really could use that win. Duke at Loyola. We've seen Duke stub their toe a little bit. They got to go on the road to Mount Ridley, a Loyola team that also could really use a win, so they're going to be desperate for one.
Yeah.
Notre Dame at Ohio State. We've seen Ohio State be really good. Saw them dominate North Carolina. Notre Dame coming off the loss to Maryland. They lost to Georgetown.
I don't know how good Notre Dame is.
A lot of questions there. Those are 3 gigantic games. And you look at the ACC. Look, we had all these expectations going into the year. What do they have? 4 of the 5 teams in the top 10 in the preseason? They've stubbed their toe a little bit here in the non-conference. The Big Ten has looked a lot better than I think a lot of people thought with Rutgers and Ohio State. We've seen Michigan come on really strong. So what does the ACC do against some of these other conferences they're going to be competing with for at-large bids? Because remember, at the end of the year, the ACC doesn't have an automatic qualifier. So for a program like Syracuse, you got to win some of these games. And for the entire league, you need other people to win games like this so that at the end of the year, your wins against Duke and your wins against Virginia and North Carolina mean something, as opposed to if all those teams are from 10 to 20 in the rankings as opposed from 1 to 10 in the top 5. There's a difference there. These are all big games to me because you look at it like there's starting to be some of the final big non-conference tests for some of these programs. And that Syracuse-Hopkins game to me is just gigantic for both teams, but especially for Syracuse. You go on the road, there's going to be all the emotions around Dave Petromala's return to Homewood. It's not like it's a Hopkins team that has Syracuse outmatched talent-wise. Like, there are no excuses here. Syracuse has to go find a way, first of all, to stop somebody. Their defense has to be better. And then find a way to get a win. The Syracuse programs of old find ways to get wins late. Even if it's a back-and-forth game, close, they're down by a couple. Cardiac Hughes finds ways to win. Can this generation of orange find ways to win.
That's been the biggest question about this group the last couple of years for Syracuse. So that's been, I think, what has been puzzling at times because we're so used to this program doing just that. In the last couple of years, they haven't. They've come up short in a lot of these ways and maybe gotten themselves into deficits at times because of that. So more on that actually in a moment here. I'll touch on that game too. But I will go with my conference to watch. I'm going with the Big Ten. And it's interesting because Travis mentioned it going in. Oh, the ACC going in. Everybody was talking about it. And then, when everybody's overreacting, including us, weeks 1, week 2, oh, the Big Ten is back. I mean, they played each other all last year. Look at Maryland and Rutgers go. And now you're sort of getting the feel of, okay, Big Ten, now it's time to pick things up. You've got Notre Dame at Ohio State.
Big game.
Ohio State loses to Cornell.
Right.
You've got UAlbany at Maryland. I don't expect that to be all that close, but they have played 3 one-goal games across their history together, so it's not out of the realm. Cornell at Penn State. Penn State losing to Penn last weekend. Cornell coming off that win. It looks like they're playing a little bit better. Will Peden, I like what he's been doing at X for them. Cornell's Gavin Adler, Ian Jacobs, good defensively. And maybe that's something that Cornell can now hang their hat on here. And this part of their future, if you will. Like if you're looking at that game. Rutgers at Princeton, one of the biggest games of the weekend by far, because I think we're going to find out a lot about Rutgers in that moment. We don't know much about Rutgers, I'll be honest with you, because they haven't beaten a lot of good teams. Army and Loyola, that's it. Those are the teams they beat in this year.
And Loyola, we don't really know what to make of at the moment.
I mean, Rutgers at number 3 in the nation, you have to win this game. Sorry, that you have to win this game.
If you're number 3 in the country,
you do. If that's what people think of you to be.
If that's your legit ranking.
And then you've got Harvard at Michigan. Michigan, another team that hasn't really beat anybody. So I think that this for the Big Ten, if you have these are tweener games, if you lose some of these, everyone's like, oh, Big Ten maybe it's not as good as I thought. At the end of the day,
it's a big weekend.
Because Ohio State, everybody thinking pretty highly after they beat North Carolina, and now sort of step back and say, oh, are they as good, as elite maybe as we thought they could be as a top 10 team? And now you're going to find out a lot more about them. We know what Maryland is, but it's everybody else, including that Hopkins game against Syracuse moving forward.
Well, I'm going to just jump off of what you said.
Let's do it.
Because it transitions us into our next topic, Slugfest of the week.
Yeah.
And I'm going to that game you mentioned, Princeton and Rutgers. Game's been moved now to Friday night because a big storm is coming up through the Northeast this weekend on Saturday. So they moved the game to Friday night. It's, I believe, 6 p.m. Eastern time. This game has everything. We talked about the midweek game between Drexel and St. Joseph's. We may get some fireworks in this one, too. Both these teams are top 11 in the country in goals per game. You got Princeton at number 7, who's 16 goals per game so far in their hot start. Rutgers nearly there at 15.6 goals per game. They're 11th. And the offensive firepower, there's depth on both of these offenses. For Princeton, it's Chris Brown, Alex Slusher, Sam English. All 3 of them are over 15 points so far in the beginning part of the season. Rutgers, Ross Scott off to a really hot start. Mitch Bartolo. We had Ronan Jacoby on the show. He, the Division III transfer, he's kind of turned the corner and feeling out the Division I game. Shane Knobloch, Brian Cameron, the transfer from North Carolina, who is part of that midfield that UNC probably could use here this year. All 5 of them are 16-plus points so far this year.
This is where those transfers for Rutgers are going to be tested the most because they didn't have the most highly touted transfer class, not like we saw with Duke or with Maryland. It was sort of some of these underlying guys that could get the job done, and now they have to do it against top-tier competition. And that's what we've seen out of Princeton so far this year. Now they have to get it done there and then.
And Princeton is coming off that win over Georgetown. They competed well against Maryland at the very beginning part of the season. Like, I flip-flop these two in the rankings. Like, in my estimation, Princeton's win over Georgetown puts them in the top 5.
They're a top 5 team.
I have them above Rutgers with what they've done so far this year. If your only loss is to Maryland, and Maryland is one of the top 2 teams in the country, and you're beating everybody else, including Georgetown, who I really thought was probably the 3rd best team before they lost to Princeton, like, Princeton's my team in the top 5, not Rutgers. So this is the opportunity for one of these teams to prove it. Who is that top 5 team out of these? Battle for New Jersey. It's on a regional sports network, NBC Sports Philly, if you get that, if you're in the Mid-Atlantic area. It's on cable along with ESPN+. I am fascinated by this game.
We talked to Andrew Song earlier this week. You want to go back and see that in our podcast on Monday, or the show on Monday, alongside George Bogan. And hopefully, if Bogan's back on defense, I think that will make a big difference in this game. But still, Princeton held Georgetown just 8 goals in that game. Georgetown's been putting up some points, so look for that once again here. All right, my slugfest of the week. I got Yale at Denver.
Oh.
So, yeah, it kind of has the, you hear it and you're like, okay, that makes sense. It's kind of a slugfest type feel.
Denver needs a win.
Yale at 2-1, Denver 3-3. They've only met, I couldn't believe they only met once, these two teams. It was back in April of 2005, a Yale 10-9 overtime win in New Haven. Matt Brown was on Denver back then.
the
now
coach.
Denver assistant. So you got that little underlying story. It's going to be 61 degrees in Denver just like 3 days after it was 2 degrees in Denver. So you have that. It's going to be a nice warm day. I don't know how everyone's going to adjust to that. And you look at this season for both these teams, it's hard to really know what they're made of. And I think that this is that's what a slugfest is. You kind of find out what everybody's made of. And Yale this year, they had that overtime win over UMass, and they go out and lose to Penn State, still trying to maybe find their way, maybe a little more than some of these other Ivy League teams at the beginning of the year, what we didn't really expect. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, what Yale's going to do against the team in Denver, where Jack Hanna, 3 goals against UNC. J.J. Silstrop has been really good for them this year, leading them in points. And then Malik Sparrow, I like a guy that causes havoc. The junior long stick midi, 17 ground balls, 11 caused turnovers this year. Would love to see what he does against that Yale offense and just causing havoc in the midfield. So,
like Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yes.
Just you never know what you're going to get.
Exactly. I love it. So there's a lot of different things I think that have a little slugfest potential there between those two. So that's my slugfest of the week.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to
haymakers, both sides.
Let's go to who needs or wants a win.
Yeah. Originally, the option here.
I originally was going to say needs, but Tom's right. We were talking about this before the show. I know I don't say that often. It's probably too early for somebody to need a win. I think maybe outside of Syracuse against Johns Hopkins, because I was looking at that. They really need a win. But we already talked about that game. So I want to go a little off the radar here, a little bit more off the radar. And who wants a win? I'm going to go with Michigan, because you look at what the Wolverines have in front of them here. First, they're playing Harvard this weekend. A big game, and probably their biggest test yet in terms of the teams they've played. They had the win over Delaware, which looked really good, and I still think that Delaware team's pretty talented, so that, I think, is going to go down as a nice win for Michigan. But Harvard maybe has more athletes than Delaware does in terms of physicality that you're going to get at a Big Ten type school. So I like this matchup. They take on Notre Dame next weekend. So this is the classic trap game for Michigan of, hey, we're undefeated, and the biggest non-conference game of our season is 2 weeks away. Can you focus in it and win this one? Harvard hung with Ohio State. They led by 1 at halftime. So this is a Harvard program under Jerry Byrne, who you know is going to come ready to play. They have some terrific athletes. They got a bunch of talented guys. These have been good recruiting classes that are coming in. Can they all gel together? And but for Michigan, the key is, what do their top scorers do? Because Josh Zawada and Michael Bem are both top 10 in the country in points.
Have been all year long.
Unbelievable. Zawada's number 1, Bem's number 10, and Michigan's offense is averaging more than 18 goals a game. That's also number 1. So does that translate against probably the most talented team that they've played all year? I'm fascinated by that. And for Michigan, I feel like you need this win in order to set up what you hope is a great opportunity to put yourself on the map against Notre Dame next week.
So they both want and need the win for different reasons. I like it. You hold that line so nicely there.
And by the way, it would be a huge win for Harvard.
Yeah.
If they can take down the Wolverines, talk about for Jerry Byrne, he's waiting to put his flag in there as head coach. First really big win. Be a good top 20 victory.
Michigan's blown everybody out but Marquette this year. And I told you early on, they've got style points. Now can they put that into action?
Right.
All right. I'm going with a wants to win aspect here.
Okay.
I'm going with Bucknell at Boston University. The 2 unbeaten teams in the Patriot League are going at it this week, and you gotta love that. And BU has sort of been the early darling. Jacksonville was that. Then BU's wins are okay. I mean, they're not as great as everyone thought. I mean, they played really well, I think, this season for sure. They've looked good in their wins, which is great. They haven't beaten top tier competition, but they've got good wins at that. Bucknell, meanwhile, They are led by a freshman in Connor Davis, 25 goals. He leads the entire country in goals per game. So they've got a guy right now that's doing the job for them as a part of this new recruiting class and trying to get themselves settled back into the contention of the Patriot League. They really want this win to maybe secure their place and say, okay, we're not messing around either. No one's talking about us. Everyone's talking about BU. It's time to start talking about Bucknell. That's why they want to win this game against BU.
I like that. You're right. BU, they beat Bryant. They started they've got this upward trajectory.
They went to Colgate, played great there.
In the top 20, they're right in there. It would be the perfect time for Bucknell to slide in and say, hey, don't forget about us.
Yeah, I think that would be a big
I like
win
that
for
pick
them.
for the Bison.
They want to win that game.
Let's go to MVP of the weekend.
Ooh, predicting MVPs.
I'm going to go back to the Notre Dame-Ohio State game because if Ohio State wants to knock off the Irish, Jack Myers has to show up. We saw what happened when he was held to 1 point against Cornell. Gavin Adler did a terrific job against him this past weekend. They lose. When you look back at what he's done this year, he had 2 points against Cleveland State, but that's a game Ohio State had in the bag. But otherwise, 8 points against Detroit, 9 in the big win over North Carolina, and 11 in the victory against Harvard.
Yeah.
So if he gets 5, 6 or more points, I think Ohio State wins this game. But Notre Dame's got All-American defensemen, too, just like Adler of Cornell. I'm going to be interested to see, does Jack Myers take what happened last weekend and Nick Myers, too, in this offense? Do they take what happened last weekend and find ways, and does Jack find more ways to get more involved and keep himself in the game? Because I think if Ohio State's going to have success long-term, he has to be involved and he has to be great, much like we see with Chris Gray in North Carolina. If those guys are great, the team can be great. I think that needs to happen here this weekend because they're going to have to score a little bit against the Irish to compete. And
they'll have the ball. Inacio is second in the nation, 70% face-off, and Notre Dame hasn't been good at the X. Will Lynch, Colin Hagstrom combining for 42%. I don't think the Notre Dame offense has had the ball enough to really show what they've got this year.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Notre Dame lost not one, but 2 face-off guys that got drafted in the PLL draft.
Absolutely. So that's a big thing for them, and you're wondering, where's the Notre Dame offense? Because it hasn't been able to keep up, and that's the big question for me going into this one. If Ohio State can win, and have possession of the ball enough, Jack Myers will indeed be that valuable player that can put it in the back of the net.
Can he be? I don't know. I mean, you get that, these are big boy matchups.
You're telling us he will be.
I know. I think
you're telling us he will be.
My thing is if he has to be great for Ohio State. He has to be an MVP this weekend for Ohio State.
All right. I'm going to go also with the offensive side. Tucker Dordevic for Syracuse against Johns Hopkins. So you read off some notes and some stats for Jack Myers, in which he's done really well. Dordevic, 5 goals and an assist against Holy Cross. That was obviously a dominating win.
Yep.
5 goals and an assist against Maryland, which you might want to call Syracuse's best performance of the year.
Yeah, they were in that game.
That was as good as they played, as well as they played, all year. Dordevic was a big part of that. 1 goal against Virginia, struggled in that one. A goal and 2 assists against Army. Weren't great in that one, Syracuse either.
Yep.
2 losses. 5 goals, 2 assists against Hobart. You see the trend? When Dordevic gets going, Syracuse does too. He's got to be great for them to be able to beat Johns Hopkins this weekend.
I agree. I mean, I agree. I still think for Syracuse, I think he's a key for Syracuse. I think they still got to figure out a way to stop somebody.
Yeah, the defense is
defensively and goal, they just got to figure out a way.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody who can do it, it's Dave Petramala. Like he's one of the greats to ever do it defensively. There's schemes, there's things you can do even if you don't feel like the talent's there. They've got to figure out a way to stop somebody.
Yeah, I think you could put on the same side Epstein. If Epstein can do what he's done in some of these games this year and go off, then I don't think Syracuse has much of a chance.
And don't forget, Hopkins has 2 number ones.
Yeah.
You got Epstein and you got Connor DeSimone.
Yeah.
Both we've seen at times take over games depending on what the matchups are. So here's Syracuse. You got to figure out what both of those guys, not just one.
It's funny, we've fallen into talking about that game so many times today without really intending. You know what I mean? Like
it's
it didn't really nail any of our categories, but that was the game that everybody sort of fell into talking about. Really interesting.
Look, the rivalry is what it is, and the intrigue with Dave Petramala wearing Syracuse. We talked to Joey Epstein about it. It's gonna be weird seeing him on.
It is weird. It's
on
still
the side.
Weird.
Seeing him on the Homewood sideline wearing navy blue and orange is going to be very, very strange. But on top of all of that, the intrigue of this game of 2 teams, two storied programs that haven't been to the Final Four in a long time, that are both trying to find their way through this season, who've both had their struggles. the win, somebody's winning this game could propel them to being great the rest of the way, or like you lose and all of a sudden does it take all the wind out of your sails?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a big game.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, let's pivot here. Penn State this weekend hosts Cornell, and Cornell, of course, coming off that big win over Ohio State over the weekend. We talked to John Piatelli about that and more. Here, take a look at that interview. So John Piatelli joins us now, and after a huge victory, John, how are you guys feeling at Cornell after beating Ohio State this last weekend?
We feel good. It was a really fun game. Obviously, not playing in a few years, getting back to, a big time home game on Shuttlecock was a lot of fun. We had a lot of alumni back. Family was here for me. So it was a lot of fun just going out there and enjoying the game again. I think it was a good, we had a good few wins to begin the season. But that was definitely our toughest test. And it was just a good confidence booster for us to get back into it. And, we got a solid team. So we're feeling good.
You hit on the break, and I did the final game that you guys played back in 2020, that win over Penn State. It was an unbelievable game, one of the most fun games I think I've ever been a part of. And then everything shuts down, and you have to watch everybody else play last year, the entire Ivy League. Walk me through just the emotions of that, and then the emotions of this year, getting a chance to be back on the field.
Yeah, it's obviously been a long road since 2020. Obviously that Penn State win was a lot of fun. It's crazy because 2020 we were on the road every game. So we had 5 games, all of them are away games. So, we were going to have our 6th game at home, which was looking forward to that. So for that Penn State win, definitely felt pretty good about our team and where we were at. We're looking forward to playing our first Ivy League opponent in Yale at home. And then obviously a lot happened and season gets shut down. So it was kind of roller coaster of emotions and weeks and months following. But being able to come back and get a 5th year here has been really surreal, and just trying to savor every day. There's a lot of ups and downs in a season, but you really learn to appreciate the ups and downs and appreciate every day when you get a season taken from you. Because at this point, it's like you never know when something could happen and it can get taken again. So just trying to really value every day this season.
What was it like not having you're a lacrosse family. You're a lacrosse family, everything like that. You didn't have it probably for the first time ever. You probably could go back and remember. What was that like?
It was tough. 2021 was an interesting year. Like watching the season, other teams play while sitting out. Definitely still love lacrosse, so I was still watching games. But as I was doing so, definitely would get mad or frustrated or just sad not being at Cornell. And I took a semester off, so I wasn't on campus. There were some kids on campus, some kids all over the map. So I think the biggest thing for us was just trying to, maintain that connectivity that we have and try to maintain that positivity. As an older guy on the team, was just trying to reach out to younger guys and continue the, motivation and continue pushing for 2022, because we had to find some spark and some light at the end of the tunnel. So that was just getting back on campus in the fall of 2021 and building towards 2022. So as hard as it was just, always finding that light to push through.
What's it like to have a guy like Connor Busick now lead this program? Obviously knowing he can still play with the best players in the world, and now he's coaching you guys.
Yeah, he's been awesome. Ever since, I was a freshman, he's definitely helped me develop as a player and leader. He's as enthusiastic as they come. He loves the game. He loves Cornell. He understands the demands of, school, family, the whole 9 yards of what it means to be a Cornell athlete here. So it's been great. He's very realistic. He's tough on us, but also very enthusiastic, loves the game, pushes us. So he's been a lot of fun. He's got, young energy, and he's very enthused on the sideline. So I can't speak, more highly of him. He's been awesome, and I love playing for him.
It feels like, coaches have some sort of intimidation factor to them, whatever, but he's pretty young. Does he have that as a dynamic? Is he more of a players type coach? Take us inside there a little.
Yeah, I definitely think he's developed it more ever since he took on that head coaching role. I think he kind of knew he had to take that on more. I think as an assistant coach, he's more of a player's coach. And now he stepped into the head coaching role where he's kind of more, he definitely has the intimidation factor and definitely will come down on us after tough days or we're not meeting the standard. So he definitely has that aspect to him. But he really is a player's coach where he cares about every individual and he we'll have conversation with guys whenever they want, whether it be about their spot on the roster, or just mental well-being, whatever it may be. He's there for them. So it's definitely a combination, but I think he has kind of gotten that part of his coaching as he got the head coaching role.
As a head coach, does he still go out there and rip any during practice?
He does. Yeah, he's definitely got the fastest shot in the team. So he still pours it on the goalies. I feel bad for them having to stand in front of that ball, but yeah.
It's a good test. I mean, that's good practice for anybody.
Yeah.
Is there any like we're still here mentality? Like I feel like the Ivy League teams coming back after not playing, it's sort of like, hey, don't forget about us. And we were up there 2020. Is there any of that, for you guys too? And maybe you did that a little bit this past weekend?
Yeah, I think it's just been so long since we played. So, we obviously had confidence going into the season, but, we're young, so didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. And after the win over the weekend, I think it just kind of solidified that, we can play with anyone. We're, very confident in ourselves and our team. And also it's pretty cool to see like the success that the other Ivy League teams are having kind of shows that, our league is very strong. And, I think the NCAA definitely missed out on, a strong league and a lot of talent last year. So it's cool that we're back and kind of, making a mark early in the season so far.
What kind of reinventing did you guys do offensively or feel like you had to do with obviously Jeff Teat moving on and everything he meant, and then and Jonathan Donville not being with you guys either?
Yeah, I think, going to the season, losing those two guys, obviously very strong players and great leaders on our team. I personally thought we were going to maybe revamp the offense a little bit, but we've really stuck to our roots and we have a very strong system in place. And when guys buy in and they play within the system, play as a 6-man unit, it kind of works with whoever's in there. So we haven't changed much. It's just a matter of playing hard, playing simple, and just trusting each other. It's just if we're going to draw slides, but it's just a matter of being simple, moving it forward, not trying to make the home run play every time. So it really hasn't changed much, just the personnel.
That's one. You fit pieces in, right? I guess that's the way it works out there.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I went to Ithaca College, John, so I know the streets of Ithaca, if you will. You a gorge guy? You go down to the Commons? What's your feel? I mean, you've been there 5 years now.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think I've appreciated the Commons more as I got older. I think as a freshman, sophomore, I really didn't go there at all. But as I've kind of gotten older, I got more into the different restaurants there and the festivals. But definitely a big gorge guy. I think probably one of my biggest regrets is not spending a summer here in Ithaca just because of the how nice it is and the gorges. But definitely got there early in the fall. We got here in August, so August, September is really nice and a lot of fun. So.
We won't tell Coach Busick. You ever do any of the jumps, in the water off the gorges?
I've done my fair share, not too many though. I leave that to some other guys on the team.
With your brother Brian also being there, are you guys like tight? Are you with him all the time? Is he your roommate, or is he just another guy on the team that you happen to be related and it's easier to get home when you need to go for breaks and stuff?
We're definitely tight. It's a big team, so there's 50 guys strong. So I'm with my class for living, and he's with his class. But we definitely have that chemistry and brotherly love, like any brothers do. So it's pretty cool having him on the team and being able to see him every day. So it's been nice.
Yeah, that's what the lacrosse family, like we said before.
Yeah.
John, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. And you got Penn State Saturday and Yale and Penn. So it doesn't get any easier after that, right? After this, right?
Nope, it does not. But we just got to focus one day at a time. So we're looking forward to the challenges.
That is a true captain. All right, John. Appreciate the time, man. Go to your lift and have a good day, and good luck the rest of the way here.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, great having John Piatelli on, and great seeing the Ivy League back. We talked to a couple Ivy League kids this week. And
Feels good.
You could just feel it from them. They're like, we're so glad to be back and just involved and just watching. I can't imagine what that was like. Just to hear them be like, yeah, we were watching some games. Like, yeah, it should be us.
And the league is really good.
Right.
Like, it's not look, Ivy League basketball is fun and great, but it's not the same as Ivy League lacrosse. Like, Ivy League lacrosse competes on the national stage all the time, especially what we've seen recently. So, like, it wasn't the same without the likes of Yale and Cornell and Penn and all these teams.
Yeah, all right.
Good.
Now we get to the women's side of things with our Quick Picks, a weekly edition of the Quick Picks. I believe I will have the honors here today. 6 p.m. Friday night. Prime time. Not out west, but anyway, if you're on the East Coast. Colorado, USC, a top 25 battle. It's 3 p.m. on Friday, or 6 p.m. on Friday, 3 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. Interesting game. I got Colorado 16-12. They met in last year's Pac-12 semifinal back in 2021. A 9-8 Colorado win. Colorado win over Vanderbilt and Ohio State this year. They're led by a whole bunch of upperclassmen. Fifth-year Sadie Grozier, senior Charlie Rudy, fifth-year defender Devin Bayer, 44 draw controls, 12 ground balls. They've got experience, and they might be a little dangerous as we get on through this season in the Pac-12 for sure. On the other side, USC, some youth movement. Claudia Shevitz, 9 goals, 3 assists, 31 draw controls. Redshirt freshman Isabel Piatelli, 9 goals, 9 assists. So I love the dichotomy between these two. One led by upperclassmen, one by underclassmen. And that's why I like Colorado. They're just going to score a little bit too much for USC to keep up 16-12.
Fascinating game. I really like that game.
Let's keep it rolling.
Let's keep going. Number 12, Florida at number 9, Loyola. This is another fascinating game. I like Loyola. I really like this Greyhounds team. I think they win 14-11. Terrific depth for Loyola in scoring. I know I mentioned this week, but between Rosenzweig, Black, Wilson, Klugel, Fielder, you got 5 players that all have 13-plus points over the course of 5 games, their undefeated start. So I think that depth of scoring is just too much. Florida doesn't have quite enough offense yet. They're still they're feeling it out, but I think Loyola's got a little too much.
The Loyola women doing what we thought the Loyola men would do. They had everybody coming back, and now they're playing well.
They're consistent.
And consistent. And the Loyola men, we don't know what's going on the other side of the hallway there. Okay.
You're correct.
I am up next here. I've got, Syracuse and Virginia. This is noon on Saturday.
Big
Syracuse
one.
at 5-1. Virginia 4-4. We're going to talk to Tyrrell sisters in just a moment, so make sure to stay tuned to hear from them on this game at the same time. But it's like Virginia's played so many good teams this year. They've got losses at Notre Dame, against Boston College, against Princeton, and against Maryland. And you could say that they were, I don't know if they were in these games, but they were competitive against some of the best teams
at least for a point
in the country. I think we got one of our best looks at Virginia when they beat Richmond 20-10 this week. Rachel Clark, 5 goals and an assist. Aubrey Williams, 14 draw controls. We bring it back to Syracuse now. In that second half against Duke, probably the best half they played all season long. They were down 9-2 after 1 in that game. Kimber Howard, the goalie, the first time all season long that Kayla's trainer is stuck with one goalie. She played 60 minutes and maybe got her bearings a little bit into the second half. She allowed just 4 goals in the second half alone. And obviously against Duke, number 1 offense in the country going in. So they did not go with Delaney Schweitzer. Curious to see what Kayla Trainer is going to do, if she repeats that against Virginia or not. So I think that will be a big determining factor here in moving forward for Syracuse and Virginia. So I got to give you a pick. Syracuse 15, Virginia 12.
What do they say about quarterbacks and goalies? You got 2, sometimes you got none. Was that what's the Steve Spurrier quote?
I think so.
Is that it?
Yeah. Florida Gators. Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's better just to have one good goalie than to have a bunch of options.
Yeah, the defense around Howard also played well.
Yes,
I would say
100%.
that. Sophomore defender Katie Goodale, 2 ground balls, 3 caused turnovers against Duke. She played really well in that one. Sarah Cooper also on the back end of that defense around them as well. So we have to give them their defense.
For sure,
too.
100%. All right, Rutgers at JMU. Rutgers off to a good start so far this year.
I think Rutgers is good.
I think we're going to find out a little bit more here.
Okay, yeah.
Because I like the Dukes.
Oh, whoa.
I think James Madison, you look at they're coming off a loss to Penn State earlier this week. I think their backs are against the wall. Molly Doherty got pulled in that game in the last, 10, 12 minutes. I think she bounces back. I think she's just too good for that. Ty Jankowski, Isabella Peterson for JMU, both with 3 goals apiece in that loss to Penn State, but they didn't get a lot elsewhere. I think they get a little bit more. And look, it's the best test for unbeaten Rutgers so far. They're up there at 13th in the country. James Madison's a little bit more battle-tested. And I just think you include the fact that James Madison can't get into the NCAA tournament with the automatic qualifier from the CAA. They're not eligible for the CAA tournament. So if they want to find a way to continue their season and be eligible for the postseason, they got to win games like this. This would go a long way. Get a win over Rutgers, start going in the right direction. Big win.
This is probably a playoff game.
Yeah.
Shelley Clays is probably telling her team, this game is to get us into the NCAA tournament right here. So
because that's
how big this one is for them.
They've played some teams tough.
Yeah.
They just haven't quite gotten over the... So I think this is an opportunity, just like they did against UConn. I think this is a big win for them.
All right, let's move along here. To the Capital Region we go. UAlbany hosting Drexel, 3 p.m. on Saturday. Some of these times and days might be depending on the storm that everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
Mid-March snowstorm.
We're getting rain.
Who would have thunk it? Anyway, so we got Drexel. They've lost 3 games in a row. They've had single-digit outputs in each of those games, and a little head scratching at times because we thought this Drexel team, this offense, was going to come in and hum, but they've you had some success, and now you get tempered by that a little bit. They have struggled on the draw the last couple of games. They lost at 16-6 against Penn, 16-5 they lost draws against Hopkins, all within this streak. So they don't have the ball enough to get this offense. Carson Harris leads the team in goals, points, ground balls, cause turnovers, draw control, second in assists. So they need the ball more to get the other people around her more engaged. She's going to get hers. Everybody else needs to get more engaged so they can actually have the ball and do the scoring. UAlbany not great themselves on the draw. So I think that works in Drexel's favor where their weakness won't be exploited like Johns Hopkins did most recently. I like Drexel in this one, 14-9.
Okay. Let's go to Duke, aforementioned. Top scoring team in the country. They're still averaging 21 goals per game.
Okay.
It's quite a bit. It's quite a few. Even after they lost. Yeah, they lose to Syracuse. They still scored against Syracuse. Yeah. That was a back and forth game. Kat Berry, we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, up near 5 goals per game so far this year. I think this is a classic bounce back for the Blue Devils. I think they pour it on Penn. 18-12. I like Duke winning.
All right, moving along, Johns Hopkins at Stony Brook. This is really interesting game. 1 p.m. on Sunday, and we know that because the game, this show is being taped, of course, before these games. Stony Brook plays Northwestern tonight. Hopkins plays at Navy. So
I was about to say, you better have the Seawolves.
A game in hand before they play this one over the course of this weekend. Stony Brook 14, Hopkins 10. They've won the last 4 against Hopkins. Stony Brook has Kaylin Hart and Ellie Massera, maybe the next iteration of the couple of stars that come along here for Stony Brook with the Kylie O'Miller and Courtney Murphy days. I don't know if it's going to be that actual realm right now, but still, they've got that sort of flair, the same sort of feel of their game. Big win over Florida. They'd only beaten Florida once in their entire program history before last weekend. They go on the road and beat Florida. Johns Hopkins, meanwhile, coming off a big win over Drexel. Their only losses to Loyola. They've done some good stuff out of Shelby Harrison, a grad, with 11 goals, 21 draw controls. Annika Meyer from defense, 11 caused turnovers, ground balls. You have to love what some of these upperclassmen are doing in Janine Tucker's last year. You can kind of feel that pulse from them. I just don't think it's going to be enough. Stony Brook feels like they got something to prove, and they're going to continue to do just that.
I mean, we had Tracy Wiener on the show earlier this week. How can you not pick Stony Brook? No. Is there anybody that's more Long Island than Tracy?
And I called the game.
Let's go.
I called the game with Kylie O'Miller last weekend.
Come on.
So, I'll ride it. Sorry, Janine.
By the way, we've got Stony Brook and Hofstra coming up next weekend.
We do.
Game. Battle
I'm calling that. Yeah.
Battle for the Island Friday night.
Yeah,
not this Friday, next Friday. So make sure you stay tuned for that. My final pick here, Cornell at UConn. This is a UConn team that's kind of gotten on a roll here since losing to JMU. I think that continues. I really like Sydney Watson. We talked to her before the season, coming off an All-American season last year. She has just picked up where she left off. She's got 25 points, 19 goals, 6 assists. I think it's a little closer, but I think it's a high-scoring one. 15-13, I got the Huskies.
Okay. That should be a pretty close game.
Yeah.
I think. Cornell's looked pretty good this year.
They have. I still got the Huskies.
One more to go. We've got Denver at Michigan. Denver at 6-1. That one loss, the 3-quarter loss at that, so you give them like 6 3/4. And you got Michigan unbeaten. 1 p.m. Sunday. I've got Denver winning this 10-8 against Michigan. And it's interesting. Denver, they against Boston College, it was the first. I know there was the freezing and all that. Well, we already talked about that earlier in the show. Won the ground ball battle, 18-11 in that game. Out hustle. They really were out there working, and I appreciate that. And there's such cold temperatures. You can do that. You can do that anywhere. Michigan, on the other hand, they have that one win against Notre Dame. I realize that. They have a big win over High Point. Caitlin Muir for them, a fifth year. She had more points than Molly Garrett last year. A lot made about Molly Garrett moving along. Caitlin Muir
She's really talented.
Had more points than Molly Garrett. So it's not like they lost everybody. But I do like Denver after their performance against BC. Might feel like they had a little meat left on the bone. You know, they've got one quarter that they need to go out there and get a lot out on, and I think it's going to be Michigan that they do it. Denver a little bit more battle tested to start this early part of the year. Michigan's first real test. I think Denver passes that test this time around.
Okay.
Yes.
Michigan beat Notre Dame. You know that, right?
I do.
That's a test.
That is you're right. That is that is the test that Michigan passed early on in the season. Notre Dame was not at their peak, so I don't know if that was the biggest test, but it was a quiz, a pop quiz.
For sure. Anyway, speaking of quizzes, why don't we quiz the House of Tyrrell? We've got Emma and Meaghan from Syracuse joining us now. We're going to have some fun.
So we bring in Meaghan and Emma Tyrrell now, both of the sisters here, known as House Tyrrell. So I got to ask, why aren't you in the same house right now? What is going on, guys? I mean, different roommate situations? What's going on? I'll ask Meaghan, the older one.
Yeah, different rooming situations. I moved off campus first. We both had class today, so we're kind of trying to meet in the middle here.
So the House Tyrrell is really only in like the loud house, if you will, the Carrier Dome.
For the most part, yes.
Okay. Emma, I have to ask, because you're the younger one, was there ever a doubt that you wanted to join your sister when playing in college?
No, honestly, we weren't initially supposed to even go to college together. We were going to go totally separate ways, but it honestly has worked out really well, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, what was the biggest hesitation of joining your sister?
Honestly, there wasn't really a hesitation. Like we've been pretty much like best friends since we were growing up. So going with her would have been such a plus, and it really has been. So no hesitation.
Meaghan, I guess when you guys were back at Mount Sinai compared to now at Syracuse, what's the difference between then and now? And I guess your relationship at all? I mean, it's one's in college, one's in high school, but do you feel like the same vibe on the field now too?
Yeah, definitely. I just think it's become kind of more matured, like as far as like Lax IQ goes, and especially like our chemistry on the field. Like it's been building for so long, and you know we're coming both to our upperclassmen years in college, so like having that chemistry and like lacrosse IQ growth these past few years has definitely helped us work together on the field.
Emma, that national championship game last year, such a heartbreaking moment, and I wonder how much of that just fuels the beginning of this season and knowing, like, no matter what happens throughout the regular season, the ultimate goal you hope there is at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having a game like that, it really fueled me for this year. I want to get back to that point so badly and actually play a full game through. It really just not being able to play in that last game really just gave me more, it's like inspired me to be better and just like try my hardest and get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and then what was it like to have, you know, one of the coaches on the opposing sidelines and Kayla Trainer then be your head coach? I mean, initially, like the reaction probably was interesting. I know Kayla obviously is in SU lore for a long, long time, but I guess that had to be a transition for you guys too.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly, I was super excited. Like even though we played against her, she's just like a great player and a great coach, and I was super excited to have her come here.
Meaghan, what's been the biggest transition to having Kayla Trainer come in and now lead the team as opposed to Gary?
I kind of think that Coach Trainer and Gary both have kind of similar mindsets where it's a very like freestyle of play. Like you can try things like that you might not normally do. So it's kind of been a very like smooth transition for us. Especially because Coach Trainer played under Gary as well. So like they kind of have like had similar mindsets, but slightly different. I don't know how to describe that better than that.
Has Gary poked his head in at all? Like, is he still like around? I know he's got other things to worry about, but I'm just wondering, like, it can't be that far away where he's like hanging out, you know?
Yeah, he like pops in from time to time. He popped in more during the fall just because like, you know, we weren't in season, so he could be around more, but he definitely pops in from time to time. So it's nice to see him.
I mean, if you know Gary Gate, the guy can't be away from a lacrosse field for more than like 10 minutes. So, I mean, I would assume he's around a bit.
I wanted to ask, coming off that Duke game, I mean, you guys get down 9-2, and what happens after that? Because it's the first quarter against Duke, who we have seen put up 20-something goals almost every single game. Meaghan, what was the difference after that first quarter? What'd you say to each other?
Basically, it was just that we had to put in more effort, work harder together, you know? When you dig yourself in a hole that deep, you know, it's so important to keep your mindset right and to be able to be like, okay, we can still get back in this. Like, this is just a slight setback. So it was kind of just like hyping each other up and making sure everyone was in a good head state as the game moved on.
Sounded like you had a lot of belief still. You know, you're like, this isn't over?
Oh, totally, yeah. You know, it's basically like, yeah, like, so Duke put up 9 goals in a quarter. Like, it's possible. It happens, you know? So it's like being able to think like, okay, it's been done, you can do it. Like, being able to keep yourself right in that type of mind state is something that we were definitely focusing on moving on to the rest of the game.
Emma, you look at the rest of the ACC, and we mentioned Duke, and they're off to a good start this year. And then you have you guys, and then you look up in the standings, and there's also North Carolina and Boston College. Those two programs in particular are 1 and 2 in the rankings at this point of the year. What do you think of when you think of Boston College and North Carolina?
I just think they're great teams, just like us, and they're always out for a great competition. There's really great teams, and it's awesome watching them play.
When it comes to the competition between you two, you know, what's it like? Is it intense? Is it friendly? How would you describe it? I'll ask Meaghan.
It's definitely friendly. I think there's some points where constructive criticism might not feel so friendly, but it's just constructive criticism. But overall, definitely a friendly relationship on the field.
How would you, like, each personality, I guess, you know, how would you describe each person? You know, who are you? Because obviously one's attack, one's a midfielder, you know, in terms of your style of play.
Yeah, so I think I'm more between the 30s, and Emma can literally just run the length of the field. She's so quick on her feet. Like, her dodges are so fast. So I think that's kind of where we differ.
Sisterly love. I love it. How would you evaluate Meaghan, Emma?
I think that she's great anytime she has the ball in her stick. Anytime that the ball's in her stick, I know there's going to be a play afterwards, which results in a goal, which is always awesome to have that kind of faith in someone. Yeah, she's just really slippery. That's one word I just describe her as.
Yeah, that's a good word on the lacrosse field. All right, Meaghan, I'm a older sibling myself, and so with my younger brother, when we were growing up, we got Madden for the first time, and I never lost until this one time he finally beat me, and I don't think I've ever been more mad at him in my entire life. What's the maddest you've ever been at your younger sister?
Ooh. The maddest I've ever been?
I'm interested.
I don't even know. I feel like it was like so long ago, and it's probably over something so silly. Like,
I feel like we really don't get mad at each other.
we don't really fight that often. Emma fights with my younger brother. That's a totally different situation. But I don't know. I probably got mad at her for like stealing my shirt or something. I don't even know. Something like silly like that.
I will say, as you get older, it gets much easier to coexist. But it's the young stuff. It's the stupid stuff, like a game of Madden, that usually gets you.
Yeah, 100%.
What's the biggest like competition off the field? Like Travis mentioned Madden. Do you guys like do anything else, recreationally that you compete at, or are one's really good at, or the other might not be as talented at?
I don't know. We're kind of competitive at school. Like grade-wise, we chirp each other all the time. But
well, what your public relations, right, Meaghan, and biology for Emma? That's really different.
They are very different.
Yeah, but we just it's something to chirp her about.
That's fair enough.
So one's science, one's a little bit different than that.
Yeah, hey, communication, science, it works. It could work well together at some point down the road.
I mean, come on, biology's harder than public relations. Let's be honest here.
Thank you.
I'm not saying it's not. I just, when I get a better grade than her, I feel good about it.
Yeah. As you should. The older siblings always right and better. It doesn't matter what else happens.
Is there another famous sister duo you would compare yourselves to? I have some listed here. We have the Elsa and Anna, Annie and Hallie from The Parent Trap. If you're into Marvel, I have Natasha and Yelena from Black Widow. A lot of fun there. Is there a duo that you would compare yourselves to?
Well, I don't know. Emma, what do you think?
I have no clue. I like the Black Widow and Yelena one though.
Yeah, you got that Yelena vibe, Emma. I can see it. There's definitely that.
There's also
great movie. I loved it.
I loved it too.
Yeah.
There's also the blonde and brunette thing going on from Frozen too, right?
Yeah.
See, a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring it back to
we're really
let's bring it back to lacrosse.
Here.
For either one of you, when you look ahead to this weekend for Virginia, what do you see?
I see a really competitive weekend for us. We're heading into another ACC game, which has been huge for us so far. We've been practicing for them, game planning for them, so kind of just getting ready, I guess. And I'm really excited to play again. This will be, I think, both our first times going down and playing in Virginia, so it'll be cool.
Yeah, how have some of these games, Emma, gotten you ready? You've had some really good games and tough battles. Some of these close wins and that close loss, of course, at Northwestern. How do you think those have gotten you a little more battle tested for this group of this season moving forward?
Yeah, especially in this season, a lot of our games have been 1 or 2 goal games, in the last few minutes. And I think it's really shown us where we need to improve and where we need to stay consistent. And I think it's really going to help us in the long run for the season.
Living up to that cardiac Hughes nickname works out well. Well, hey, we really appreciate the time. Good luck this weekend, and hopefully we'll catch up sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Always fun to catch up with some Syracuse peeps.
Yeah.
We talked to them.
Sisters.
We talked to them just before the Syracuse men's basketball team lost to Duke. Great effort, though. So they're probably a little bit more disappointed now than they were when we talked to them.
Yeah, but the Syracuse lacrosse women's team,
they're
definitely the shining light on that campus right now.
Yeah.
They've and the hockey team, they won the hockey team.
Women's hockey team. Yeah, they won the conference.
Yeah, anyway,
Good
let's
stuff.
move along here. We're talking PLL, and they finally announced all the places they're going to go this summer.
Yeah, second half of the season got released here earlier this week. Some interesting sites. The one that stood out to me was Tacoma, Washington, out in Seattle.
Yeah.
To me, they go out to the Pacific Northwest for the first time. It's been you look at Drew Snyder coming from there, and you look at some of the players we've had come from Portland, Oregon, whether it's Tucker Dordovic or some of Peter Baum, obviously. I think it's going to be cool to go up to Oregon for the first time.
I'll list them out for you guys at home. Albany,
okay.
Charlotte, Long Island, Baltimore, Minneapolis, Boston for the All-Star game, Fairfield, Connecticut, that's the one that stuck out to me, Frisco, Texas, Denver, Colorado, Salt Lake City, Utah, Seattle, Washington to finish up the regular season, quarterfinals, Boston, semifinals, DC, championship, Philadelphia. They've kind of followed that formula throughout. But, the Fairfield, Connecticut stuck out quite a bit.
Why does that stick out? It's the same spot that everybody goes.
Who?
Lacrosse. It's like the hotbed of lacrosse.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess you're looking for a tri-state region.
The Connecticut Hammerheads.
We had one.
Have you forgotten about the MLL's Connecticut Hammerheads?
The Connecticut Hammerheads. No, I did not forget. I remember there one.
They were going to play in Fairfield.
Yeah, I know. They were going to play out there with the Stags. Yeah. I thought that, doing it in Connecticut, maybe not, closer to the city or whatever, and not doing something like that. But they do go to Long Island, too.
Yeah.
So they have a couple stops right around that location. I just thought it was an interesting location. Okay.
I will say.
I thought maybe they would mix in Florida this time. That's what I kind of thought would happen here.
I will say.
The game has grown quite a bit in Florida. There's been people asking for that, too.
I will say Rafferty Stadium at Fairfield, one of the best stadiums for lacrosse I've seen. They had an MLL semifinal there a handful of years ago. Terrific atmosphere. Doing college games there is awesome. They got a big hill on the far side. Great place to watch lacrosse. Also, the Star in Frisco, Texas, we know this now. One of my favorite places I've seen college lacrosse.
I talked to Greg Grenlian at LaxCom. We were talking about the World Championships going out to San Diego. And I was like, where else you might think in the future? And he's like, Texas. We got to do it in Texas. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, lacrosse is blowing up out there. He goes, when I do clinics or whatever, there's tons of people. I got a buddy who coaches down there. He's like, yeah, we're a little on the outskirts, but it is really growing. And Texas, and I think it's great why they're stopping there. And we know that Frisco, they have a history there.
Yeah.
And now there's an NLL team there, but just another example of the sign of the growth in that part of the country. And, of course, Charlotte North has been a big proponent of that, too.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many talented players on both the men's and women's side we've seen come from Texas over the last handful of years.
Yeah.
I mean, Cade Sostad, he was a first-team all-state football player in Texas who's playing close defense for the University of Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen 10 years ago.
No, and I think that's an important factor, an important place to help grow the athletes that are going to be in part of this game for the next 10, 20 years.
Also, is down in Charlotte. They looked like that stadium that used to host the Charlotte Hounds has been renovated. And I mean, it's already, you can see right over to the skyline. It was a gorgeous place before, but the stadium now has been renovated. It's beautiful. So another good spot.
Take any pictures?
I did not of that stadium.
Okay.
I went by the Panther Stadium, though.
Yeah.
Bank of America.
It's not where they're playing.
No, it is not. You were correct. Anyway, let's go to games that are happening this weekend.
Would have loved to see it.
Yeah, okay.
We're in the day and age.
A lot going on.
Next time.
Anyway, NLL, let's go to games that are happening this weekend. NLL game to watch. What you got?
Albany at Halifax. Great game. The only time Halifax has lost all season long was to Albany. Ugly game. It was 8-6 in Albany back on January 29th. And the other intrigue in this game, Halifax picking up Sean Evans in a trade with the Rochester Nighthawks. So you add Sean Evans to the mix.
That's crazy.
I don't know how it's going to work. I mean, you've already got righties, Shanks, Bushi, Keogh, Peterson, and now you add Evans as another righty to all of that. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to work, but I guess you add more off. That's the thing these days, right? With teams, it's like the Rams are like, we're going to go out, we're going to get Von Miller now. We're going to get Jalen, we're going to get all the, or Odell Beckham Jr. And I guess that the teams are just trying to load up and get some depth. And Sean Evans with Halifax, we'll see what happens.
I was going to say, what's like the equivalent of this in basketball? Like, because Sean Evans is he's getting up there in age, but he's still got lots of tread left on the tire.
Yeah, you're right. You've been really all in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can find an equivalent. It's not like LeBron getting traded, but is it like Jordan later in his career, going across town? No.
Like
Barkley?
Like Michael Jordan?
Maybe Charles Barkley?
Like Barkley going to
Charles Barkley,
late
in his career, just getting traded to a contender.
He went to Houston.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about like a fake one.
Right. Yeah. What's a hypothetical equivalent?
A hypothetical equivalent of that.
Yeah, like Charles Barkley just getting traded.
Like a Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, maybe.
Or a Paul George. Is Sean Evans the Paul George?
No, I don't like Paul George. And I like Sean Evans. Yeah.
What about playoff P? He had a playoff P moment, and then he had a rough time in the bubble after that.
He's had some rough times.
But he's been
don't
good.
Like Paul George.
He's been a good player.
And I like Sean Evans, so I can't do that.
No,
to him.
You're right. Okay.
Kawhi Leonard was
Sean
better.
Evans deserves better.
He does deserve better than that.
Kawhi Leonard might be a better comparison after he went from the championship team,
right?
Toronto
won a title and
the Clippers. Yeah.
Sean Evans, terrific, big addition. I'm gonna go.
What game you watching?
I'm gonna go Toronto and Vancouver. Believe it or not, we are 3/4 of the way through this season.
Yeah, we're getting there.
This is the first game the Warriors have played against a team in the East.
Okay.
So, hey, Warriors, I sold you your stock before. What you got? Because I think we know that the West is a little all up in the air still. I still don't know what we have in the West. I think we have an idea of some of the teams that are good in the East, and I think Toronto is one of those teams from what we've seen for the most part. So I'm fascinated to see how Vancouver matches up with Toronto. Tom Schreiber, 3 points last weekend in the bounce-back win against New York after they had surprisingly lost to the Riptide the week before. They got the job done when they went north of the border this past weekend. He's up to 47 points on the year. He's having a terrific season.
That's a late night for Toronto. 10 p.m.
Yeah, it's out west.
That's a late start if you're going out west.
I mean, that's a 7 p.m. start local time.
You got to get the biorhythms going early.
Not all of us are like you who go to bed at 9:15.
9:30. It's wonderful. I got 9 hours of sleep last night.
Jeez.
It was glorious.
Beauty sleep over here.
All right, what NCAA game are you watching, Travis?
I'm going back to the battle for New Jersey. I love this game.
I thought you were going to say I love New Jersey.
I'm gonna.
I love New Jersey.
I'm gonna go no comment. I do love this game. Grab a pork roll. Is that what they do in New Jersey?
I don't know what
I've
they
been
do.
through it a lot. But this game is fascinating. You got two teams who are right there in the top 10 in the rankings. I still think Princeton's the better team, but here we go. Prove it. Like, let's see what happens between these two. A game that now has been moved on Friday night, which actually I think feels more fitting. Like Friday night, New Jersey.
Yeah.
This seems like a terrific showdown. I'm all in on it.
Why?
So I don't know.
Why does New Jersey
it just feels like a great showdown to have on a Friday night. Like Saturday afternoon for this one doesn't feel right.
No,
top 10,
that's fine.
two top 10 teams on a Friday night just feels right.
Got to bring in New Jersey.
New Jersey,
Friday
man.
nights in New Jersey. Who
You
knows?
know, they're
Gym tan laundry, the whole 9 yards.
do your GTL in the afternoon and get ready for 6 p.m. Eastern time. Get the fist pumping out.
Right, let's go.
Let's go.
Right.
I'm fired up for this game, and I can't wait.
All right, I got Duke and Loyola. That's the game I'm watching because I don't know if I've seen enough of Duke. They've played plenty of games, but I feel like I haven't seen enough of them yet because they've had some games where you're like, okay, that was a nice win or that was a weird loss. I just want to see them play against a Loyola team in which I'm ready for them to be like, all right, this is us now. They beat Lafayette by a couple, and Lafayette, better team this year. And Loyola goes 1-0 in the Patriot League. Good for them. They step back out of conference for this game, and maybe it's a time for their wake-up call and say, okay, rest of America, this is what we were supposed to be, and then maybe they could do it against Duke. Really intrigued. I'll be watching that game at the beginning for sure.
The thing for me about Duke is they're just so talented. You watch
that's the thing.
You watch them play.
They are a team you want to watch. You've got so many guys that are gonna make a highlight. You got Nakai Montgomery who's still there. You've got McAdory who's still there. You've got O'Neal.
Brennan O'Neal. Robertson.
They've
got 9 guys that if they got the ball and you said, go one-on-one, beat your guy, and score. They've got 9 guys that can do that. That's what's so fascinating about some of their struggles at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and Dyson Williams. You forget about Dyson Williams. He goes off, and you're like, oh, wow, Dyson Williams got another 4 goals
He could score 6 goals without even blinking.
Right, I know.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So this Duke team, if there's any team that almost feels like they're under the radar because a couple of their losses early on, it feels like it's Duke.
Yeah.
Virginia and Maryland deservedly getting all the praise as they should. But at the end of the year, don't be surprised if Duke's not right there.
Yeah, they're not as hefty defensively as they've been in the last couple of years. But offensively, they can go gun for gun with anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I must watch Lacrosse, Duke.
Oh, okay.
It's
this is my game to watch.
You know what? I know, but them just as a team. It's
you can watch.
You know what I think? It's like the Miami Heat with the big 3 in their first year.
If you give me one more NBA reference, I'm going to walk off the set. You made one during your game on Tuesday. You mentioned it was an NBA game. You had your NBA segment. Now we're having NBA. You're all obsessed. He's all happy because Joel Embiid and James Harden are playing together.
Ben Simmons returns to Philadelphia Thursday night.
He's Mr. NBA now. All of a sudden, the 76ers are the favorites in the East.
Big moment.
That should do it for today's show. We've had enough. I know you have too. Enjoy the lacrosse this weekend. We'll wrap everything up next week. That's Travis. I'm Tom. See you next time.